Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. We have an interesting update from the Kharkiv front. According to the Institute for the Study of War, hasty starts and limited manpower has hindered Russian progress in the Kharkiv offensive. Russian forces likely launched their Kharkiv offensive prematurely, using an understrength force in an attempt to establish a foothold before the arrival of U.S. military aid. This makes sense. For months we've been hearing these reports of a massive buildup in Belgorod for a new summer offensive, likely to take place in June. But the Russians went in early. Because the United States passed a military aid package in April through Congress, the Russians tried to beat that aid to the front lines. So they went in before they were ready. And this explains why things have been so chaotic, so disjointed. The reports coming out is that Russia's taking 8-1 casualties to not really go anywhere. They haven't even penetrated 5 kilometers deep into Ukrainian territory. So the Russians haven't moved in 7 days, and they're not making progress, and this has been a complete disaster. So of course, the Russians are going to double down and keep going. Russia amassing more troops near the Ukraine border north of Kharkiv. So they're probably going to do this again, and they're probably going to keep sending reinforcements. When the Russians make a mistake, they want to keep making that mistake until they're absolutely sure for some reason. So this is a problem. This is a concern if this escalates. Russia is sending fresh troops, they're sending more armored vehicles, they're sending more aviation, more glide bombs, more artillery. They're focused on committing to this new front in Ukraine, even if it's been a disaster so far. And the reason why is asymmetrical warfare. For the last 2 years, the Russians have been trying to make progress in Zaporizhia, trying to make progress in Donetsk, trying to make progress in Luhansk, and they keep getting their teeth kicked in. But the Russians are trying to exploit a loophole. If they just attack from Russian territory, then all of their artillery, all of their aviation, their command posts, their ammunition depots are perfectly safe on the other side of the border. Because of this restriction that Western weapons can't be used on the territory of Russia, Russia is now rearranging their entire war plan around this strategy, around this loophole. This is concerning. To illustrate my point, I want to share this clip from the Minister of Foreign Affairs for Lithuania. Here's him explaining the situation.
The biggest problem of almost all the questions that we are solving is our fear. That we're afraid of what Russia might think, of how Russia might react, how Russia might act. And at this point, our fear looks like it's an invitation. Not only an invitation to act more fiercely in Ukraine, with heinous attacks against civilian objects, destroyed supermarkets, killed children and women and innocent people, but also an invitation to act in our countries. And we're talking about hybrid activity in Baltic region, in Poland and other countries, but it's going beyond that. And we know that Russia has intentions to act kinetically, meaning organize diversions, organize even what could be called terrorist acts within NATO countries. And it only acts so because it feels that it's invited, because it can calculate that we're not going to react in any meaningful way. And the way how to react to Russia's aggression in Ukraine and also in our countries is to support Ukraine. Is to allow Ukraine to use the weapons that they already have the way that they need to use them. That is how you manage escalation. Not by de-escalating, but allowing Ukraine to fight back and to win the war. This is how you stop Russia.
Our fear of what Russia might do is an invitation for Russia to do more. Moscow does not limit itself to anything, according to the Polish foreign minister. So different officials, ministers with various EU governments are now speaking out, showing their support for a change in this policy to allow Ukraine to strike on valid military targets on the territory of Russia that Russia is using to attack Kharkiv and other border regions. We've also got a statement this morning from the Dutch defense minister saying it is quite obvious that Ukrainians should strike inside of Russia as well. So from my point of view, this should not be a subject of discussion, and I hope other states will change this position. This is the president of Latvia also sounding off. There's no reason to prevent Ukraine from striking inside of Russia. We also got President Macron of France this morning telling Zelensky that Ukraine should be allowed to hit only targets on Russian territory that are being used to attack Ukrainian territory. Fair is fair. So who's saying no? There are clear rules. Chancellor Scholz reaffirms ban on Western weapon strikes inside of Russia. Here's the unofficial tally. Countries that are in favor of changing the policy: Finland, Sweden, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, the UK, the Czech Republic. We've got statements from government officials in Poland and now in France. Who's publicly against changing the policy? Italy, Germany, and so far the United States. So this is the debate happening here in America right now. And I want to share this clip of Ukrainians protesting outside the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv. This is the first time this has happened in a really long time, but this is how strong the Ukrainians feel about this policy coming from the United States.
Let Ukraine strike! 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 Let Ukraine strike!
Let me share some of these signs. Russia destroys our publishing houses, but we are not allowed to strike their military bases. Striking military targets in Russia can save Kharkiv from being razed to the ground. This policy has to change, and I do think it will change very soon. President Biden is going through this political process. I'm sure now, before he changes the policy, he's probably got to talk to Chancellor Scholz, because Germany is a very important component of the coalition. But there are signals coming out of the White House that a change in policy will happen soon. For some analysis, I want to share this tweet from Ambassador McFowell. He was the U.S. ambassador to Russia between 2012 and 2014. Some on Biden's foreign policy team rightly worry about escalation, and with good reason. Biden himself shares that concern, but Putin is already using his full arsenal in Ukraine, except for tactical nuclear weapons. One last move remaining in this playbook. But that kind of escalation would be highly unlikely now, especially in response to an incremental change in U.S. policy. Putin thinks he is winning right now. He's also waiting for Trump to be reelected in November. It is not in his personal interest to become an international pariah now. And when you talk to Ukrainians, they remind you they are the ones who would be attacked with a nuclear bomb, not the United States. Putin has never threatened to use a nuclear weapon against the United States. Ukrainians would like us to stop being so paternalistic in deciding what is best for their national security interests. Ambassador McFowell continued, Putin could be months away from getting a friend back in the White House if Donald Trump wins. There is no way he's going to screw that up by launching a nuclear weapon now. No way. Politically, this also looks pretty bad for Biden. If Ukraine is losing on the battlefield by November, Trump is going to blame Biden for wasting American taxpayer money. So Biden actually needs Ukraine to regain the momentum on the battlefield before November. Couple important points. if the policy is changed and Putin goes to that final escalation step, it's the last thing he can do, using a tactical nuke on the battlefield, well, he's going to nuke Ukraine, not Washington, D.C. So changing the policy doesn't put America at risk. It just puts the city of Kharkiv, the city of Kyiv, the city of Odessa at risk of being nuked. And this is Ukraine's choice. Ukraine is willing to take this risk in order to be able to fight the Russians on an equal playing field. The other possible change that people are talking about, NATO considers defending skies over Western Ukraine. So there's a coalition of countries, including Estonia, the UK, Poland, Canada, Lithuania, and France, who might be open to the idea of sending their own air defense systems to protect the skies over Western Ukraine. I don't think Slovakia or Hungary are going to cooperate, but if Romania and Poland allow Western countries to bring in their air defense systems, they can cover huge territories in Western Ukraine. This frees up Patriot launchers or air defense systems that the Ukrainians have in Western Ukraine to move east to help protect the city of Kharkiv. This probably should have been done 2 years ago, but once again, escalation. This would be NATO air defense systems shooting down Russian missiles and drones. But once again, change the policy. Russia's not going to do anything. And since we're just stomping over all the red lines Russia pretends to have, let's do this one as well. French troops are coming to Ukraine according to General Sirski. Ukraine's top general said an agreement has been signed in which France will prepare to send military instructors to train Ukrainian troops directly on Ukrainian territory. Now, Ukraine's Ministry of Defense did put out a clarifying statement to the general, saying that nothing is official yet. Starting from February of 2024, Ukraine has expressed interest in the prospect of receiving foreign instructors on Ukrainian territory. But as of now, we are still in discussions with France and other countries. But I do think over the next 6 months, before the end of this year, there's going to be lots of NATO personnel on Ukrainian territory. But they'll be there in supporting roles. Medical workers, maintainers, logisticians, trainers, maybe even cyber experts. Not soldiers in the trenches yet. We might get there someday. But this is once again that stepping stone that NATO is going to continue to play. But NATO troops are coming to Ukraine soon. Putin sacrifices 24,000 Russian soldiers every month. This is according to German Chancellor Scholz. And Russia's capable of doing this because they're recruiting more than 24,000 soldiers every month. The estimates are about 1,000 a day. That's 30,000 a month. So when I hear this imbalance, they're losing 24,000 a month and they're recruiting 30,000 a month, then this war has to get more deadly for the Russians. This number has to be higher than what they can replace with. Russia can't be allowed to regenerate and maintain their current levels of combat readiness. Ukraine needs more weapons. Ukraine needs restrictions lifted. Russia destroyed the Zaporizhia domestic airport terminal. This is the after, and this is what the airport looked like. The good news is that this airport terminal is not being used because there are no domestic flights anymore. Nobody was killed or injured in this attack. But the reports is that because F-16s need pretty pristine runways, Ukraine is considering using domestic airports that aren't flying. They're going to use domestic airports to fly their F-16s. So my guess is that Russia is preemptively trying to destroy the infrastructure of all of Ukraine's domestic airports because they're scared about F-16s. This doesn't do anything to stop the runway, but Sure, Russia, you blew up an airport terminal. Ukraine hammers Russian airbase with missiles carrying cluster munitions. It's like Christmas every day now, guys. Every day, every video, we're going to hear about the latest ATACMS strike somewhere in the occupied territories. So this time it happened in Luhansk. There's some videos in the distance. The fire looks pretty massive. And presumably this was some kind of command post, but also maybe weapon storage facility near the Luhansk airport. We do have some initial videos on the ground, and when these cluster bomblets fall everywhere, anything flammable or capable of going boom goes boom. Russia just lost something of value to them. Ukrainian drone attacks Russian radar station in Orsk, 1,600 kilometers from the front lines. So this is probably the story that has me the most confused. Why is Ukraine doing this, other than just to destroy high-value military targets? But 3 days ago, we got reports that Ukraine struck Russia's early warning radar systems in Krasnodar. They then did it again today in Orsk. One, I could excuse, but two, this is deliberate. Ukraine is deliberately trying to knock offline Russia's early warning radar systems for a nuclear attack. Now, this makes some experts nervous because if Russia feels they can't detect incoming missiles, this might provoke them for a first strike. It might increase their incentive to strike first. Other people are saying these radar stations were used for other purposes, potentially to detect incoming ballistic missiles on Russian territory, such as ATACMS. But I don't know. We do have satellite images showing the before and after of this radar installation. It took a lot of damage. And why is Ukraine doing this? I don't have a definitive answer, but I'm guessing they wouldn't do this unless they were talking to Western leaders. Potentially the UK, France, and the United States, the other nuclear powers, bumped Ukraine in the direction of doing this with their domestically produced drones. It's interesting, but I don't have an explanation why Ukraine would go for these radar installations as opposed to another oil refinery attack. We're probably going to find out in the next couple weeks. Russian police probe mass street brawl, a shootout in Chelyabinsk. I can't share the video, obviously, because there's violence, but I'll link this clip down below. It's about 2.5 minutes. And what we can guess is that Wagner mercenaries got into a brawl with a local group of bandits, and initially they were winning. The bandits then called in their buddies and beat up and shot up the Wagner mercenaries. It's a pretty gruesome video. Lots of beatings, lots of shootings. If you want to see what daily life in Russia is like, check out the clip. But this is a prelude of what's to come. Things are going to get really bad once all of Russia's money becomes worthless and all these gangs start fighting over food and diesel. Nearly 5,000 Ukrainian inmates have volunteered to fight. On May 17th, Ukraine's parliament passed a new law allowing prisoners to get out of prison if they're willing to join the military. This sounds a lot like what Russia is doing, but it's completely different. So here's a picture of some of the first volunteers. These are Ukrainian prisoners getting out of prison a little bit early in order to join the military. So let me explain to you how this is different than what Russia is doing. While it is true that Kyiv's version of prisoner amnesty is also driven by the need to compensate for the current battlefield manpower shortages, the law has imposed strict rules on which prisoners are eligible. Moscow's version allows serial killers, the R word, the P word, and other serious criminals to receive a get-out-of-free-jail card and a complete pardon after just 6 months of fighting on the front lines. Ukraine has set limits on who can qualify. Only prisoners with fewer than 3 years left on their sentence can apply, with mobilized prisoners being granted parole and not a full pardon. So if you're a Ukrainian man who was sentenced to 10 years in jail, you need to be at 7 years of prison time with only 3 years left to be eligible. Among those not eligible to serve are those found guilty of premeditated murder, the R word, sexual violence, sexual crimes against minors, those involved in serious government corruption, or any crimes against the national security of the state. Ukraine has also said the prisoners joining the Ukrainian military would receive full military training before being deployed. So this is nothing like what Russia is doing. I think all of these restrictions and limitations are reasonable and appropriate, but most of these Ukrainian men are not serving time for violent crimes. Most of them have served probably a majority of their term, and they're being paroled, not given a full pardon. I like it. Let's get to the good news for Ukraine. Germany to allocate an additional $65 million in humanitarian aid for Ukraine. Thank you so much to the German people. Spain has pledged $1 billion in military aid to Kyiv as President Zelensky visited Spain. Included in this package are Leopard 2 tanks. Spain is the only country this year that's announced they're sending additional Leopard 2 tanks. So thank you so much to the people of Spain. Norwegian capital commits $1.5 million for a children's rehabilitation center in Lviv. This is not the Norwegian government, it's the city of Oslo allocating $1.5 million. So thank you to all the amazing people from the capital city of Norway. Final couple of feel-good clips. The first one is from Richard Woodruff. He's a British volunteer with Frontline Kits, and he wants to share with you an amazing beach he found somewhere in Ukraine.
So believe it or not, I am in the heart of Ukraine at a beach called Zhivchik, which apparently is like an appley pear lemonade, is what the meaning of it is. And this beach is right next to the Dnipro River, which you can see off in the distance here. But who would have known, in the center of Ukraine, they have incredibly beautiful beaches. So you don't need to go to Spain, you don't need to go to Portugal, just come here. And look, my little tosichka. How class. Okay, bye guys, love you lots.
Does look like a nice beach. Final clip I have for you, once again, is from the Superhuman Center. This is a Ukrainian defender going through rehab. And the exercise he's doing at the moment, he's very motivated to do, and you'll see why in a second.
Классно? Вау! Бабка молодец.
That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.